I'm not calling you racist and I'm not calling you prejudiced, but you need to understand that you have some biases that are unconsciously allowing you to create spaces that look just like you and not open to other people. And you got to check what that's about.
Who are you?
I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller.
In telling stories about gay characters.
The world was filled with people who occupy different intersections of otherness.
And I was fortunate enough to get in front of creative teams that were woke enough to see my light, to have conversations with others.
Who is this biracial angel?
Trans women and trans men.
I celebrate myself. Celebrate yourself and love each other.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to JBC Presents Conversations with Others. I'm Jeffrey Boyer Chapman, and I'm thrilled to be joined by today's guest. He is an author, entrepreneur, activist, host of his own super soulful podcast, an Emmy Award-winning television host, 1/5 of the sensational Queer Eye crew, and a brilliant ball of light of a human being that I'm blessed to have in my world. And now, for the simplest and most complex question of all, who are you?
I am Karamo, and that means educated. My middle name is Kariga, which means rebel. And I continuously, since a child, getting that name, have tried to live up to that of being smart, but also being courageous in the world. And so that's who I am. And I'm so excited to be with you.
Karamo, I'm so happy to be connecting with you today. I've missed you. It's been so long since I've seen you.
I've missed you as well, but I love stalking you through social media.
Ditto. Where did you get this name from? Who named you? Your mom, your father? Was it a namesake?
My father. No, I'm the first. And I've been trying and asking every friend I've had for the past 15 years, whether they have a girl or a boy, to name their child Karamo, and it has not happened yet. But my father actually gave my name. He's a Rastafarian. My parents are Jamaican and Cuban, and my father wanted his children to have names with meaning. And so he gave each of us a name that had something that he felt would define us on our path in the world. And so I got Educated Rebel.
There's no better words to suit the Karamo that I know you to be. Also, you're a Scorpio, so I feel like it plays directly into the whole Educated Rebel vibe.
Okay, I'll take it, because usually when people think of me as a Scorpio, I'm like secretive and sexual. So I'm like, I'll take.
You got to be smart to keep secrets, and you have to be a rebel to be sexual, right?
Boom! Boom! There we go, baby. What is your sign?
I'm Libra Scorpio cusp. So I'm October 21st. If I was born the next day, I would be Scorpio. So I definitely have a lot of Scorpio isms in me. And I have so many Scorpios in my life.
That's amazing that you're on the cusp, because that makes sense with you, because you have the Scorpio vibes, but you're also very level-headed. Every time I get around you, you're very much like, okay, let me weigh this. I just feel a very levelness from you. So I get that.
Thanks, Karamo. Like attracts like. I can definitely say something that I love so much about you is something that I see as an undeniable superpower of yours is your ability to establish deep connections with anyone you encounter. And you're so disarming. You have this incredible ability just to put me at ease immediately upon being in your energetic field. Is this something that you've consciously, like mindfully cultivated as a practice, or is it a part of who you've always been?
It's not a part of who I've always been, so I appreciate you saying that. And it's not something I'm mindful of. I think it comes with being someone who's chaotic and spastic and needed a lot of growth and needed to do a lot of healing in my 20s. But now in my late 30s, because I'm 39, I'll be 40 at the end of this year, I've come into a place where I'm at ease with myself. I know who I am. I know that who I am will change and grow and develop. And I'm an open book. I don't have anything to hide anymore. Like there's nothing, this is what it is. This is who I am. I'm open to learning new stuff. And so hopefully that is what people feel with the ease. I'm not afraid to say no to people. I'm not afraid to say yes and offer help. I'm just at a space now where it's like, okay, what comes out of my mouth can be my honest feelings, because I'm not afraid of the make-believe consequences that I believe are going to happen, that I feel could affect my life, because at the end of the day, they won't. It's just the only thing that's going to affect me and my well-being is if I'm not being true to myself.
Oof, I love that. And I think that's something that can truly only come with age. I mean, it's so cliche to say, but I wouldn't you couldn't pay me to live in my 20s again because I was so lost. I was slowly moving towards discovering the depths of who I am, but everything is so new because you're experiencing everything for the first time. So everything seems so huge. But with learning to say yes to things, I think that can only come with having a deeper understanding of who you are and shedding all of the layers of secret and shame that we may acquire over the years. And learning to say no to things is setting boundaries so that you're no longer susceptible to manipulation or being taken advantage of.
It is the truth, because in my 20s, that is what you just said. I always try to I have house parties, and sometimes these little boys will come in, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but they're in their young 20s and they're hopping up and down. And I'm just like, oh, baby, you couldn't pay me to go back to that age. And it's just that thing of when you're younger, and this is not true for everyone, so I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people are still finding themselves, and like you said, it's so easy to manipulate your feelings and your choices. And my feelings and choices can't be manipulated as easy now because I'm just so aware of who I am and what I want and where I want to go. And it just feels really nice. I'm I love it. I can't wait till I'm in my late 40s and in my 50s. And I'm just really whatever, this is it, you know?
Yeah, there's really just such a comfort and level of self-awareness that comes with age that I wish that I would have. It's something that people who are older than me had always told me, but it's something that you can't.
Me too. And we didn't listen to it.
Listen, because you can understand it on an intellectual level, but you can't really soak it up on an emotional level until you're there experiencing it yourself.
Yep. How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, then, yeah.
Do you know, I actually share a birthday with Kim Kardashian, Judge Judy, and Amber Rose, and Carrie Fisher.
Wow, you got some good ones. I got Nelly and, I can't remember the other country star. Nelly and another country star are my two.
You know, that's good company to be in. I have been to some of your house parties, and I love them so much, because something I think is so interesting about you is that you are an open book, as am I, but I'm also so protective of my personal space and very much an introvert. It's very rare that I open up my home and my personal space in the way that you do. Is that something that's just always been so important to you, having that constant flow of energy around you?
No, not really. I'm a bit of an introvert as well. It's ironic. When I go to parties or clubs, I stay in a corner and I don't move. I don't have all of my friends I've had for over 20 years, who I call my best friends. And the people I pick up, I pick them up in hopes that we can create friendships that will last for a long time. The only reason I have house parties now is because I grew up poor, and we only grew up in apartments, and my mom and dad were very strict. And so I could have maybe one friend over, and there was all these parameters and rules. And where we lived, my parents were very strategic in trying to make sure that I have the best education, my sister had the best education, that they would find a map of the school district with the best school, and they would have find the apartment building that was on the edge of that good school district so I could go. So majority of the time growing up, all of my friends had all these fancy, beautiful houses, and I would go to their houses for house parties, and I'd come back to my apartment and wasn't ashamed of my apartment or my family's apartment, but I just hated the fact that I couldn't have friends over, and I didn't have a pool. We had a community pool, that was part of the apartment. And so I couldn't do the same things. And, we never had snacks in the house because we couldn't afford snacks. We had snacks, but I remember my friends had a whole bunch of snacks, and I just thought it was the most amazing thing. And so, once I finally got a house, which was only 2 years ago when I finally was able to afford one, because here in LA, it's if we were anywhere else, we could afford to get a house years ago. But here, it's you don't have $1 million. It's call it a day. And the blessing of Queer Eyes, it allowed me to have a house. And the minute I got one, I was I want house parties. I want people to come over and to swim and to eat snacks and all the things that I didn't have as a child. I'm sort of giving to myself now. And so I'm still an introvert, because at my parties, I'm constantly running around because I can't be focused in one space, because if I do, I'll realize like, oh my gosh, there's too much going on. So I try to hop so that way I don't have to focus on the amount of people that are actually in my house.
Interesting. That makes perfect sense because I absolutely see that being your mode of operation during your house parties. And I think part of it is just also you being so incredibly generous and you being such an attentive host. You're constantly
trying to be
other people. Oh, you do a phenomenal job. I love coming to your house. So let's go back. We're starting in the now, but I want to go back to your beginnings. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. So my parents immigrated to the States when my oldest sister was born. So way before, because I'm the baby. And then they migrated to Texas because my father was an accountant. He worked for an oil company. That was when the oil company thing was booming. And then so I grew up in Texas, and, that was like crazy being Black, immigrant parents in the South, being gay, and it was just like a whole lot of like trying to figure out how to navigate and be true to my identities with all these things around me that told me that my identities weren't okay. And then as my parents turned 15, they got a divorce because it was an unhealthy relationship. And I moved to Florida, where I went to my full high school and college. And my high school is actually Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. That's the high school.
In Parkland?
Parkland, that was my high school that I graduated from, that I went to all high school. And so it was seeing that high school on the day when that happened, not going back to that, but was such a transformative moment for me just as a student, as a father, because my kids were going off to school that day. It was just like so many modes of emotions. And then also one of my classmates was who I actually went from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and played football with, actually was the coach that moved back there and was there to save the kids. So it was like, it felt like one of my classmates died, which he did. So it brought me back to high school, but then it also brought me back to like these kids, and it brought me back to a father. And so that was my childhood, kind of like Texas, Florida identities. Then as an adult being thrusted back into my childhood because my childhood was on the news.
Mm-hmm. There's only a very small age difference between you and I, 35 and 39. But even when I was in high school, it was in Canada, that was right around the time when school shootings started to become more common.
Same, yeah. We started like literally it was our generation that started feeling the like bomb threats and school shootings and all that. We used to have these drills of like, we would have to run out the school and like whatever because of, it just started happening. And you would have thought back then, especially after like Sandy Hook and all this stuff, that this would have been done. And it just goes to show which one of the things that I can't stand, that as I become more of an, as I get older and I have more influence and more access, is figuring out a way to sort of get people to stop allowing things to separate us or things to be politicized that are separating us that shouldn't be. Like when you see a child dying, that shouldn't be a left and right issue. It should just be like, no kid should die. Like simple, easy breezy. And for some reason, we allow these individuals who have money and who try to retain power to divide us when their kids schools aren't getting shut up. Like I've seen some of these rich schools now that I make a little bit more money, and I see some of these people and I see where their kids go to school. Their kids' schools have fences around them, no access. You have to have things. It's our schools that are getting shut up. And so it's just sad that when we were in school, we saw the beginnings of this, and now 20 something years later, we're still seeing this. It's just ridiculous.
I could never have dreamed that this would be the world that we were living in. And it was so jarring and so, I don't know how you felt, but I remember going to school, and I grew up in such a small town where I was really, I guess in my high school, it was a high school of about 2,000 people, which was the size of the town that I was originally from. And I was one of maybe 3 Black kids in that school. And I was one of maybe 2 identifiably queer kids in that school. And I just remember when Columbine happened and hearing the stories of the shooters coming into the school and specifically targeting others, members of the LGBTQ community. And I remember going to school every day terrified that, remember hearing car doors in the parking lot slam and my heart just racing immediately and my mouth filling with a taste of metal and just having this overwhelming terror. Do you remember Jay Leno, the Tonight Show with Jay Leno? He used to do on Mondays, he would do his headline segment.
Yeah.
In our school one day, there was a bomb threat, and somebody called in a bomb threat, and there was an announcement over the PA system from our principal saying that there's been a bomb threat announced, and he instructed each student to go inspect their lockers to see if there's anything unusual.
No, he did not. You're lying. You are lying to me.
No, bitch, this old white fool actually sent children out into the trenches. It was ridiculous.
To go see, like, if there's what were you going to do? Be like, oh, there goes the bomb. This kid is dead. That is... I can't imagine now that we're the adults. Like, if I was the principal of that school, there's no way I could be like, well, send the kids, you know?
I know.
What part of Canada were you from?
I was from Alberta. So it's a province it's Western Canada. It's just north of Montana, right next to British Columbia. It's very much very similar to Texas. They call it the Texas of the North. A lot of oil and gas. And my parents all worked in the oil industry as well. Farming, ranching, golfing, hunting, like very, very, very white, very patriarchal, seeping in toxic masculinity.
Ooh, I'm sorry, baby. A little Black queer boy in that. Oh, I am sorry. I know your pain. It
wasn't easy, but I will never play the victim, because all of the experiences I had, as challenging as they were, shaped me into the human being that I am. And and a lot of it, I was protected from a lot in some ways, because I was adopted and raised by a white family. And as challenging as that was, being misunderstood as a Black queer person, I didn't necessarily feel like vehement disgust or anger or denial of my sexuality from my family, because it wasn't ingrained in them culturally. My biological father, who's Jamaican, that's very much a way of thinking that he subscribes to, unfortunately.
Preaching to the choir. Hold on, I had no idea you were Jamaican as well. What?
Yeah,
we talked about that.
Yeah, and I know that you were raised by a Jamaican father. So how was that something that you had to navigate as well?
Yes, the same thing you just said. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's ingrained in a lot of the Caribbean cultures. Things are getting a lot better, but it's ingrained because, you know, colonization, religion came in, and then they started to rewrite the words of, you know, the Lord. And these people, the same book that was used to keep them as slaves, then they started to use that to damn themselves and damn their own families. And so, yeah, it was the same thing you dealt with. It was like hard, you know? So you probably didn't hear this grow up in your house because you didn't grow up with your biological father. But I tell this story all the time, that there was a popular song from, and it was popular for at least a good 6 years, from an artist by the name of Buju Banton.
Bati Boy?
Batiman. So Boom Bam Bai and a Bati Bai head. And so me self-identifying as gay from the age of 10, walking in a household, and we had a lot of family gatherings, walking in a household where there was family members together, and this song is being played on repeat. Let's kill gay men. Let's kill gay men. I was like, well, this is an unhealthy environment. Like, I even knew at that age of like, this is not right. And so I dealt with that growing up. Like, my father and I didn't speak after I left his house. Well, when I let him into my life and told him that I was gay, we disconnected there. And so my high school experience was weird, because there was many times in my house that my father would just not speak to me for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months at a time. And we're in the same house, and it's just he and I, because I'm the youngest, and my mother and him were divorced. And so if you can imagine being in the 10th grade and going 5 months in a household without talking to your father, but still being afraid to break the rules because you were brought up, you still have to do what's right. So it's like, I'm not really having anybody discipline me, but I'm self-disciplining because I'm scared of you, but you're also not talking to me. It was like quite a mind, F. And so that was like what happened the minute I let him in. And then one minute I went to college, we stopped talking all the way up until, I don't know, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, baby. How long was it? 3 years?
That's intense. I mean, it's so many queer kids, so many young queer kids live in this invisible prison because it feels so desperately unsafe to express the truths of who you are and to gravitate towards the things that truly speak to our souls. I know that I had to keep all of my interests and passions hidden from the world around me because it only served as making me a target to be bullied, to face emotional abuse, physical abuse. So at that age for you, did you see any reflections of yourself out in the world, either in your real life or in media? Was there anyone who you could look up to that you aspired to become like?
None in my real life, because again, similar to you, the towns we kind of grew up in were predominantly white. I never felt connected with sort of the white gay community. Even today, there's a disconnect in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, I'm dating a white guy, but literally, like, when we go to all white spaces, and it's not an intentional thing, sometimes like in the gay community, if you don't know, there's racism within the gay community that people don't really realize. And so when you go to these clubs and you're like, oh, there's no other people of color here. It's like 99% white. And you go to these spaces, and I still don't identify with like white guys all the time. And so I didn't have anybody in my community. And then growing up, this was like the 90s, early 2000s. The only people I had were, first, you remember Pedro Zamora on The Real World? His boyfriend or husband was a Black man. And watching him be supported and loving of his partner was like the first time I was like, what in the world? Like, this is amazing. I mean, like, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience for me to watch. And it was one of the reasons that when I went on The Real World 15 years later, walked in that house and was only thinking of him and thinking like, wow, I watched him and got to do it. And then the second person was Rue. He had this talk show that I used to come home to and watch. And I knew I didn't want to be in a dress, but I knew behind that dress was a gay Black man. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And it's funny because the things that I saw shaped who I am today. Like me being a talk show host and being a television host, and me going into reality television, these things are because these are the two people I saw that were like, we're strong and beautiful and successful. So I kind of just followed their path unconsciously and got to where I am today.
Yeah, that's such an interesting story. I can relate on so many levels, because as blessed as the kids of this generation now are to have the Billy Porters and the Black queer men who are extraordinarily talented, accomplished actors, I didn't have that as a point of reference. So the only people that I did have to look at, the Black queer people in media in any form, RuPaul being a major one for me, it was so evident to me that he was being celebrated for being himself, and he was celebrating himself.
Yep.
It's what led me to being who I am as well. Back to what you were saying before about being a Black gay man in gay white spaces.
Mm-hmm.
It's a interesting conversation to have, because I've certainly been in a position far too many times, and I'd like to acknowledge, of being fetishized, objectified, sexualized, appropriated from white gay men. Is that something that you had ever experienced?
Yeah, we all experienced that. You can, like, any person, any Black man or Latino man or Asian man in this community who has not experienced that is not ready yet to be honest with themselves. There is a power dynamic. I mean, at the end of the day, gay white men are still white men. And so for many of them, not for all, they grew up with the same privileges as their white, straight brothers. And so then there was this sort of disconnect when they were authentic with themselves. But then a lot of them, and again, I don't want to marginalize and say all, but a lot of them brought that same sort of privilege and sort of like, I am superior attitude into the gay community. So they were outcasted from already a privileged system, came over here, and they were like, okay, well, we gay. Okay, well, we're better than y'all, though we're, gay. And you still feel that, I mean, like, it blows my mind that you walk into a club in any state and like, you don't see women there. And that's part of that like patriarch. And like, it's because these sort of men were like, nope, we don't want women there. And then, when you don't see people of color there, and then none of these white guys see any problem with that. They don't see any issue with the fact that there's no people of color, there's no people who are living with, who have disabilities. They feel very comfortable with like, oh, we're all shirtless white boys. And I'm just like, we are in these spaces because of our careers and because of where we live and because of the access that we have. And so then they turn that on us, and they start to be like, ooh, I want the exotic Black guy, and I want, whatever. And I'm like, for me, to be real with you, my fiance is the first white guy I have ever dated.
Wow.
Didn't date one before. Didn't want him, didn't want to touch him, because I didn't want to be a part of that. Like, I didn't want to feel this sort of like, you're fetishizing me, you're whatever. I just didn't play into it. And when I met my boyfriend, my fiance, at first I thought he was Puerto Rican. I was like, okay, I can do me a Puerto Rican. And then I found, because he had a little low Caesar haircut, tricking motherfuckers. And then I was like, oh, you're from Maine. Okay, great. Well, I still love you. Okay, we can do this. And he knows it's true. He's smiling behind me right now. But I literally would not date any white guys. And it wasn't because I was being prejudiced. It was because of the way I felt rejected and the way that I had been fetishized by so many white gay men that I was like, I'm not going to willingly participate in this type of toxic behavior in our community. And so I made this deliberate point not to. And then one day I was like, you know what? Well, let me just open myself up to see what else is out there and see who else I could. And that's how it kind of came up. So yeah, I feel exactly what you're saying. It's so sad. And I think sometimes we need to check ourselves. I was talking to, you're part of the Drag Race family. I was talking to Monet Exchange the other day. She and I had this very frank conversation about like the underlying prejudice and racism that the queens have and how biased the queens are, like the fans are of Drag Race. And she was like, just look at social media. Like there could be a queen of color that's killing it, but like this white queen who was mediocre is like killing it on social media. And it's because some of that, internalized prejudice and racism that's within our community and we just don't talk about it enough. And so I think it should be talked about more.
Oh, it's something that is such an uncomfortable topic to cover, but it takes courage in order to start to bring life and words to this issue, because when we don't have a language around something, it can't be explored. And if something can't be explored, then it remains misunderstood.
And then you don't challenge people. You don't get to challenge the people to see that it's an issue. I mean, there's a photo of us when we first kind of like started hanging that I had that it's a beautiful photo. We are serving, baby. I need to send it to you. But we were at some gala, and I don't even know the gala that we were at. But it's so funny because you and I are the only two men of color. I can't remember who's in the photo. You know the photo I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, but also in the background, it's nothing but white folks. And I'm just like, I go to these awards and these things to honor our community. And because you've been in them, it's like maybe out of a room of 1,000, we are 100. You know what I mean? And it just is like, look around. Y'all don't see there's an issue here that there's not enough Black folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, folks with disabilities, trans folks, gender nonconforming folks. There's not enough. You don't see there's an issue that there's all white guys in Texas. Yeah, y'all don't see this problem? There's not enough women in here. And so I think that we have to bring it up and say, like, I'm not calling you racist and I'm not calling you prejudiced, but you need to understand that you have some biases that are unconsciously allowing you to create spaces that look just like you and not open to other people. And you got to check what that's about.
Definitely, and not only acknowledging the privilege, the white privilege that white people embody, but creating safe spaces for others, for queer people, for people of color, for people with disabled bodies, for women, for trans people, to come in a way that they are able to safely express who they are, what is going on with them internally, their own experiences, without fear of offending the white bodies in the room, without fear of retaliation. I feel like so often we play small because we're afraid of upsetting people. I mean, I know for myself, more often than not, when I've approached even people who are very close to me in my life, who are white and have unconsciously been spewing or displaying their white privilege in a way that was hurtful to me bringing that to their attention has never really ended well for me. And I think that so much of that has trained me and trained so many people of color to remain quiet and to play small. It put me in a position where I was in a relationship for 3.5 years with a white person who objectified Blackness, appropriated Blackness, fetishized Blackness. And because I was so conditioned from the environment that I grew up in, that I wasn't living in celebration of myself and didn't have the confidence, self-awareness, or self-love to set that boundary for myself and to not allow that energy in. And making that choice over a year ago has empowered me in ways that I could have never dreamed of.
How honest and beautiful. This is another reason why I love you, by the way. Just to be that honest and forthright about your experience, I think it's going to help so many other people who are in that same situation and who are like, I know this ain't right and I'm not feeling this. And I know this is not how a relationship should be, especially if people are of different races. And for you to be that honest about that is so great. And then you to follow it up and say, which I think is so clear and succinct, I wasn't celebrating my own life. That's like something you got to wake up in the morning and just say, am I celebrating my life today? Or am I living in this sort of like pity party or sad place because of the external things that are around me or people that are around me? What a great way just to put that. But I also want to add to you, I think a part of that pushback comes from is because white folks are on defense. They're on the defense consistently. I mean, now we've given them nicknames, you know, the girls are Karens. They're on high alert and defense. And when you're on high alert or defense, you're never going to be able to fully receive the conversations and, you know, the education that you want to give. But on top of that, what I've learned, especially in the gay community, or period, is that most white people don't realize they have privilege. We're a very intelligent generation. I think sometimes we speak over people, and we say things like cisgender. You know, you go to my family and you say the word cisgender, they're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I try to educate them because I want them to understand certain things. But I realized that a lot of white people, all of a sudden one day we all woke up and were like, you have privilege, white privilege, white privilege. And they're all like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm poor, or I don't have this job, or I don't have this. And they don't see themselves as having privilege. And what I realize in the gay community is that white individuals who are gay experienced a trauma of being rejected from their families or being rejected by the quote unquote privilege, that they're like, I'm not a part of that privilege. I got kicked out like you got kicked out. My mom didn't love me like your mom didn't love you. So I don't know what you're talking about. I have privilege. And then it's like, how can we slowly and quietly break down to them that the privilege is not about your trauma. The privilege is about the access that the system has given you to have opportunities that I will never have. And it's about how do you break that down in a way that they realize we're in this room, yes, because we both had shared traumas, but the reason there's more of you than me is because the educational system, job opportunities has allowed you as a white gay man to become the executive director of this organization, but has not given the opportunities to people of color or trans people or gender nonconforming people or individuals who have disabled bodies to have these same opportunities because we are shut out. And I think we need to figure out, well, not figure out because I'm tired of explaining shit to white folk, but I just really am. I've literally, this is the real shit real quick. I have literally put my partner on a mission and it's really happened in the last 2 years. I told him that we wouldn't walk down the aisle until he had conversations about race and privilege with all his white friends. Because I said, I'm tired of talking to them. So y'all white folks need to get together and talk yourselves because I've given y'all every bit of information I have. I've given you every tool. I've sent you every goddamn link. I've posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You've retweeted, but you still don't get it. So now y'all need to start talking because if I keep talking to y'all, I'm gonna bust one of y'all in the mouth. And so before I get violent and get thrown in jail, I need y'all to talk to each other. And so literally every time we get around dinner parties with our white friends, I am like, I give him a little nudge and I'm like, time for you to bring up race. And like, he gets into these racial conversations and I say, oh, by the way, I'm not uncomfortable about this. I'm just gonna get up because y'all need to be having this conversation, not about me, and walk away. And I do this deliberately. He's in these conversations at least 5 times a month. I'm not even joking to you because I'm like, if you want to be with me as a Black man, and if you want to really say you support me and my community and the things that we're going through, then you need to get all the rest of these white folks on the same page because I'm tired of trying to get them on the page.
Amen. Well, thank you, Ian, because we need more educated allies up in this community.
Shit, don't we? We are tired and exhausted.
Two messages, 2 running themes that I seem to get from white friends that I have had the courage to initiate thoughtful conversations around white privilege are: 1, I would never want to offend or come across as racist? And two, how dare you tell me that I offended you or came across as racist?
Exactly.
Laverne Cox and I were just having this discussion about learning to set emotional boundaries for ourselves and to empower ourselves, because you just said it can be exhausting trying to have individual conversations about white privilege with white people, one after the next. And really, it's not our job, because we aren't the ones who invented white privilege, folk.
You better speak on it, Jeffrey. You better speak on it.
Girl, so much about it is setting boundaries for yourself and just really learning that instead of calling out the emotional monsters and the abusers and the people with white privilege, is learning to teach our community to empower themselves, to identify emotional abuse, to set boundaries for themselves, and to refuse to allow that type of energy into our lives, because we are worth so much more than that. And something that you were saying about not dating white people before, Ian, I had been in relationships with white people, with Black people, with First Nations Indian people. My partner now is Salvadoran. It's not that I would never, I love my boyfriend, Eric. So, hopefully we're in this for the long run, but it's not to say that I would never be with a white person again. It's just, there's such a shorthand being in a relationship with a person of color. So much can go unsaid because there's just this deep intrinsic understanding of the experience of what it is to be a person of color walking through this world.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that I love. And what I try to do, especially in this business, is because of that shorthand, and because of the things that we know, is that I try to make sure that when it comes to people of color, that I am, or, it's not even just people of color, to be honest with you. It's people of color. But it's also like my trans sisters and brothers. Like, I always try to be like, what do you need? If there's something I can help, let me try to help and let me try to give. And like, if you have a project, let me highlight the project and let me do whatever, because I think that understanding the struggles we go through and understanding how much we've had to fight. I've never talked to you about your career, but I damn sure know that yes, you're a beautiful man and yes, you're talented, but I know that you have struggled hard to get your section of this. You know what I mean? This wasn't something you just woke up yesterday and were like, I'm going to be on television. I'm going to star in this TV show and I'm going to do this. There was a lot of work that you put in. And intrinsically, as another gay Black man, you don't have to explain that struggle to me, because I'm like, I already know what that looked like. I already know that there was roles that you were good for, that when you got the casting sheet said white, 26, blue eyes.
And straight.
And straight. You know what I mean? And it's like those type of things. It's like you get that and you're like, what in the hell? Why wouldn't this just say 26 male, or whatever, and like allow the best person with the best acting chops to get it? And so I know the struggles you went through. So now I'm like, with those struggles, I want to make sure I'm always like highlighting what you do. And I think, to go to what you say, that's what I think is beautiful about, yes, when you date someone or you're with people who have had similar experiences, you don't have to talk about the shit that you went through. You can just be like, I see you. I got you. What you need? Okay, I got you. Yeah, let's figure this out. Let's go for it.
Oh, Karamo, I know this to be undeniably true for my own experience with you. I'm just infinitely grateful to you for the incredible support that you've offered me from the moment that we met. I'm with my speaking agency because of you.
Aww.
You hooked me up with that. You've not only have you been so supportive of me personally and professionally, but just the way that you operate your way through this world and navigate your way through this world.
But you're the exact same way. And I appreciate that. I take that in and thank you. But you're the same way. And I think that's why I'm so proud of all the success you get. It's because I know you give back. You're constantly being like, let me give. You said you spoke to Laverne, and I love Laverne because she's the same way. She constantly is like, let me give back. And, one of my greatest goals and hopes is that in 20 years, there's going to be 2 Black gay men or, queer men on a call. There'll probably be some new technology or whatever the hell.
Holograms.
And they're not going to be talking. Yeah, exactly. Holograms or something. But they won't be talking about this because we've made strides. I want it to be better for them, that the support we're giving each other and how we're helping so many people, they don't have to just give. They can just be a little selfish, because we've done the work for them per se.
Absolutely. And that those struggles and trauma don't have to take up room in their emotional lives. They can hold a higher vision for themselves. So you and I, growing up in a generation where we didn't necessarily have positive reflections of Black gay men in media or in the world around us, what was the vision that you held for yourself in your formative years?
Oh, I just knew that I've always had this belief that it's a little bit of delusion. And I'm thankful for this delusion that I would look at other people and I would be like, if this Yahoo, I still say this to this day, I'm always like, if this Yahoo can do it, I can do it. You too. Right?
I do the same.
Yeah. And I it's something that when I worked with kids, when I worked in social services, I'm always like, no. You gotta get to this place of no, you can do anything, that you're fearless. Because the minute you allow these things to take you down is you start to believe them. You start to believe the negative narratives around you. And I just literally fight against that by being like, oh my gosh, this jerk has this job. Oh my gosh, I'm getting this job. I can get this job. And that was the vision I had for myself, that my life is supposed to be great. I'm supposed to have things that I didn't have access to before. And I'm not just talking about money. I mean love and healthy relationships and sanity and clarity and these things. I just believe if someone else is deserving of them, I am deserving of them too. And that's always been the vision for my life, is that I'm deserving of these things. But with that statement, I knew that it meant being a hard worker and being open to asking for help and being vulnerable. Hard worker, asking for help, and being vulnerable have been these sort of keys to success that I've used so that I could live in that delusion, quote unquote, and be like, no, I'm getting this life. I deserve this life. You know what I mean? There's no reason that we do not deserve this life. There's no reason that little gay Black boys around the world, or, lesbian Black girls around the world, or gender nonconforming little queer boys around the world, kids around the world can't feel as if they can be president or be an astronaut or be in entertainment like us. No, you can. And someone needs to tell you, and let us be the ones to tell you, you really can.
That delusion, that fake it till you make it mentality is so powerful. I don't think that people really recognize. I think that we can look to the esoteric spiritual world of intention setting and manifestation and all of that as something really woo-woo and out there. But it really comes down to the laws of the universe and to neuroscience and to physics, that if you set a goal, you have something to move towards. But if you don't have to move towards, then you're going to be just kind of blindly making your way through the energy of this life. I often use the GPS mentality. When you get in your car's not going to tell you where to go. It's not going to take you to your final destination unless you put that end destination in. You have something to...
That is good. Ooh! Don't be surprised if that's on season 6 of Queer Eye.
Yeah.
Do not be surprised. I'll quote you, baby. I'll quote you, but do not be surprised where next year you're like, that bitch really took my little... Ooh, the GPS method. The car is not going to take you where you need to go. You got to tell the car where to go. I love that. That's good.
It is yours, my love. It is all yours. Something that I love so much about you, and that it's been so evident from the first episode, the first season of Queer Eye, is that you have taken all of these lessons that you've learned about your own life and self-love and personal evolution and mindfulness and consciousness and generosity of self. And you share those messages with each and every person that you encounter, not only in your real life, but also, I guess Queer Eye is your real life as well. With each person you encounter on the show, it's such a tremendous gift that you give to these people in doing exactly what you were just saying, being vulnerable and honest. And in doing that, it creates a safe space for the person that you are engaging with to do the same.
Thank you. Queer Eye has been a blessing because it felt like everything I've been through in my life personally, and then my education matched up at the right moment and created this sort of slingshot for me to soar into the next chapter of my life. And it's really that thing where everything aligned at the perfect time. Because it was like, oh, I know how to do this. I think the thing that about Queer Eye and about what you said, which I really appreciate, that I had to fight against season 1 and 2 especially, because I'm in this boy band. I've never been a boy band before. We're an aging boy band, but we're a boy band. There's 5 of us. People want to, they choose who their favorites are. But one of the things that my ego had to deal with is that my title, unlike my partner's titles, my co-host titles, their titles tell the world what they are. And culture doesn't tell people what I am, and my skill set that I have a degree in being able to help people figure out what's in their mind and in their emotions. And so it was very easy for season 1 and 2 for people to dismiss what I was doing and not understand that, like, yeah, everyone else is fixing the external, I'm fixing the internal. And it was very hard for me season 1 and 2, because I remember the slogan came out, you're not crying, I'm crying. And I remember immediately people dismissed my role and did not, and I'm talking about in the press, fans. It was just like an immediate, like, it was like, we don't know what he does. And my partner would tell you, like, I came home and I would, like, be so depressed and angry and sad and, like, these sort of emotions. Because I used to be like, the slogan is, you're not crying, I'm crying. I'm not crying, you're crying. And I'm like, I'm the person who makes people cry on this show. I'm literally, my scenes are the crying scenes. And it wasn't take away anything from my partners. But my ego wanted validation. And I had to realize that, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this to help me grow? Am I doing this to help other people grow? Am I doing this so that I have an opportunity to get to the next level in my career? Or am I doing this because I need people on Twitter to tell me they love me, or that I need people to say that, they like me? And that was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned being 36 at the time, of like, oh, snap. You can get real caught up in your ego of wanting other people to tell you you're so good and you're so great and pat you on the back. Or you can say to yourself, I did a good job. And I know I did a good job because this person is now living a healthier life. I feel fulfilled. They feel fulfilled. And I know this is going to only lead me to something greater. And that was a struggle that I had to have get through season 1 and 2, so that season 3, 4, 5 and beyond, I could be in a healthier spot. But yeah, so I appreciate you saying that, but I want to let you know it was a hard journey to get there.
I think that's something that people really can't understand unless they're in that position of putting themselves out. As Brene Brown says, as Theodore Roosevelt said, having the courage to put yourself in the arena and to get bruised and battered. And it's a really vulnerable position to be putting ourselves in. And it's a learning curve. And as a species, we all experience these learning curves and these growth periods. But you and I are in the position of having these learning curves in the public eye. And it can be
public eye. Yep.
It can be so much for the ego. But speaking to what you were saying, I just did a live panel yesterday for We Rise LA, which is a mental health organization. And the panel was on disordered eating. And I was talking about my experience with anorexia nervosa as a teenager and in my early 20s. And something that I know to be absolutely true is that in order for me to have any sustainability in my life when it comes to the external, when it comes to my physicality, when it comes to keeping my home space and environment clean and organized, and in any regard like that, my internal life has to be in order. In order for me to have a grip on my mental health, on my emotional health, to not relapse into negative disordered eating patterns, it all starts from within. There's powerful what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just love that, how honest you are. I've never heard a Black man talk about their eating disorder issues. And when I worked in social services, there were so many young Black boys, and in particular, that were dealing with that, because that was an outlet for them to deal with whatever emotional or mental challenges they were experiencing. And just thank you for talking about that. That is so big. Like, these are the type of things that I wish more Black men talked about. Outside of being gay, these are things that Black men are going through, but they're not talking about. They're just not sharing with each other, because, growing up, when you hear about any type of eating disorder, you immediately associate blonde white girl. That's what the media has told you. You're blonde, you're white, and you're just like not able to handle your emotional state, so you're throwing up or something, or you're abusing your body. And it's so much deeper than that, and it's not just this one race or gender. And so kudos to you, brother. I just want to take a moment for that.
That means a lot to me, and it's only because I know that I'm safe with you to be able to disclose these parts of of myself and of my life, and that's the power of vulnerability, and that's the power of compassionate listening and creating safe spaces for people to be as they are, who they are, from the depths of their soul's core, because that's when we can access our most authentic selves. And when we are able and willing to do that, it gives other people permission to look to you and to say, me too, and to do the same. There's so much power in that. How did the transition from you working in social work to reality television, how did that connect? How did that happen?
Well, I got out of college and started working in social services in an organization called the Brotherhood Crusade out in South Central. And my kids were getting arrested because they were mimicking the show called Pimp My Ride that used to be on back in the day with Exhibit. So they were leaving South Central to go to Beverly Hills and steal from cars because they wanted to pimp their rides. And I'm fresh out of college and straight, Malcolm X is my hero. I'm like, we protest and we burning down MTV. And so I got at a group of people down to MTV to protest it, literally made signs and all this stuff. And while we were there, this woman came out and was like, who did this? And I was like, me and my boyfriend. And she was like, gay, black, angry. And she called me back the next day and said, do you want to come back the next day to talk about it? And I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm actually about to get a TV show off the air. I'm like doing the work. I'm saving my community. And I got back the next day and it was like this cattle call for basically the real world. And she was like, we're just so happy you're here. And we want to, we really want you to audition for the show. And I was like, hell yeah, I will. And like the young asshole in me totally forgot about the kids, totally forgot about everything. Cause I was like, I'm going on the real world. Are you kidding me? And 2 weeks later I got cast and that's how I got on reality television. But what reality television did for me the first time around was that it made me realize that, first of all, anybody who thinks that reality television is going to give you a job or career or make you rich or make you famous is sadly mistaken. Because people get on these reality shows thinking that they're about to have this crazy life, and it's not the case. That is like a 1% of like franchise reality shows that give people the opportunity to actually have a career. And even those careers, you still have to work on it to have like longevity and make real money at it. And so I got off the real world and realized, well, this ain't a career. But also the real world brought out these demons in me that I was hiding, that I didn't want to face. I didn't want to face my father. I didn't want to face my anger issues. I didn't want to face that I had an addictive personality. I didn't want to face any of these things. And when you have a show that is following you for 24 hours, 7 days a week, for 4 months, people who are on reality television like to complain and say, well, they edited that together. And I always say, boo, they can't edit what you don't say. So it came out of your mouth. It might have been used in another context, but you said it. So if you say, you know what, Jeffrey's a bitch, it came out of my mouth. And so it's what it is. And so it made me face watching myself back that like, I didn't like the person that I was. And that was a hard thing for me to look at and see and say, how do I change? And I didn't change immediately. I went down a destructive path of like using a lot of drugs and drinking and going out every night because I was scared to face what I knew was inevitable, that I would have to look at why are you living your life like this? And why are you not facing your past? And eventually I had to just face it all. And the only reason I did is because I hit rock bottom where I got into the hospital. I was 140 pounds, 50 pounds from doing so much drugs. And at that moment I was like, oh, okay, this is either I face this now or I die, because clearly it's affecting me mentally, emotionally, and physically. And, reality TV gave me that opportunity. And so once I faced it, I walked away from this and said, if I want to do this, I have to come back with a plan. And went home to Texas, got custody of my kids, figured myself out, lived there for a couple years, came back with a plan of saying, I'm going to be a television host and work in reality television. And what does that look like? And then started a year and 2-year plan of literally going to community. I'd already gotten a degree, but I went back to community college for journalism because I was like, I need to have skills. I need to know how to communicate. I need to know how to write and read a prompter. And reality television with a plan made me successful because it allowed me to face my fears first and face my past, but then come back and figure out how to make a career out of it.
Ooh, that is brilliant. That is a formula for the ages, my love, because I know firsthand after playing a reality television producer on a TV show for 5 years, how the majority of reality television characters are celebrated for becoming caricatures of themselves, for spotlight on the superficial or these really small, really, really inauthentic versions of who they are, and just playing up on that. And something that I love so much about Queer Eye and about Drag Race and about We're Here is that these people are being celebrated. You find success. You allow the audience to fall in love with you when you are willing to tap into your own authenticity and really just display that from the most vulnerable position that you could possibly stand to put yourself in.
Amen. Amen.
Definitely.
Amen.
So you guys have been doing Queer Eye since 2018. It's 2020 now, and yet y'all have done 5 seasons. How?
Well, we started in 2017, and so we shot 2 seasons immediately out the gate. And so by the time the first 2 seasons had come out in 2018, Netflix had already sort of done their preliminary to know it was going to be a hit in their minds. We were still nervous. And so immediately, once season 1 came out, by the time season 1 was out, we were already starting to shoot season 3 and 4 at the same time, because they were doubling up. And so again, now by the time season 2 would come out, we had already finished season 3 and 4. And then we went on this massive, a year and a half press tour, because seasons were coming out like this and they were just putting us everywhere. As it's an international show, we were in Australia for months and London for months and here for months and blah, blah, blah. And then it's just last year that we finally caught up, where last summer we shot season 5. Which is about to come out now, on June 5th. I just saw the episodes, all of them, and I'm like, the 5 of us, I'm proud of us. I'm like, to pat ourselves on the back and be like, this is good. And so we shot season 5, and now we're shooting season 6 before COVID hit. And so we just now caught up. But that's why it seems like so many seasons. But for us, we've been working now for a lot longer, but it just seems like because of the way they're coming out.
And you have all been very deservedly catapulted into, a level of superstardom. For good reason, because it's not for the superficial, it's not for falsity, it's not for pretending to be other people. I think it's something that our society has just gotten so backwards, is that we put so much importance and emphasis and celebration on actors and people pretending to be other people. That's where you make the most money. That's where you win the most awards. That's where you're the most super famous. But it's the people who have the courage to be themselves and to expose the depths of who they are on a public platform are the ones who are truly, in my view, worthy of celebration, and the dollars. But I think that
the coins, hunty.
The coins, honey. But you being catapulted into this public platform so quickly, I think that you are handling it in such a graceful way because of all of the work that you've done on yourself leading up to this. But that said, and you expressing the challenges that you had in the first 2 seasons with the response from media and from social media and critics and the like, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, because in the next month I have my new series, Canada's Drag Race, coming out, and
which I cannot wait. I'm like, they better be playing it on VH1 here, and if not, Amazon Prime. I am ready for it. I'm so ready. When you told me you got this is way before you started filming, I screamed because I was so excited for you.
I know, you're so sweet. It was when I saw you at the Emmys this past year.
Yes.
Sweet Karamo, thank you. Yeah, it's actually going to be on the World of Wonder platform, Wow Presents Plus in America, and then on Stan in Australia, Crave TV and Out TV in Canada, and I'm sure it'll pop up other places as well. But it's a very vulnerable position I'm putting myself in, because I'm used to being an actor and having the luxury of hiding behind characters. But this is the first time I know how passionate the Drag Race fans are, because I'm a quintessential Drag Race fan. But I'm a very sensitive person, and although I've learned many lessons over the past decade or so in the industry on how to protect myself and setting boundaries and things, the energy can still seep in and can still really affect me. What tools have you implemented to help shield yourself from that energy? Do you read the comments? Do you engage on social media like that?
I don't. I try to, and then I don't, because people forget. It's really sad. It's the world we live in. They sort of feel like because you put yourself in the public eye that you're saying like I want all of your comments and I want all your opinions about me. And the truth of the matter is, me putting myself in the public eye doesn't mean that I want your opinions and comments on me. And I think also people forget that we are human beings. It's because you watch someone on television that they just feel like, oh, well, I can say whatever I want to say because I'm in my room and this person will probably never see it. There's a likely chance nowadays that people will see it. And so I pay no attention to it. And I think one of the things that I don't think you'll have any issues personally, because I think that your authenticity and your love, like this time around on Queer Eye, yes, I had the ego that, was getting criticized of like, what does Karamo do on the show? But, it was still always positive. It was like, they were like, I don't know what he does, but I love him. And so it was like, okay. So I think you'll be in that same space of people giving you nothing but love. But I think one of the things that you can just remember is, first of all, none of these people on social media are paying your bills. So, that's first of all, none of them. And that's real talk. And then secondly is just remembering what you want next and what your goal is. Because, you transition from actor to host now, there's going to be a new world that's open to you because you're going to be able to go back and forth between both worlds, which I'm so happy for you because it's such an opportunity that a lot of people don't have. Yeah, where they can fluctuate back and forth. It's such a blessing in this town, especially with how uncertain our careers are. Like a show gets canceled, you might not work for another 6 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's such a blessing to be able to say, okay, while acting's done, I can host. While hosting is done, I can act. So I'm thankful for that. And so just remember your goals and, don't let those people get to you. I mean, it's all generic advice, but that's what we all do. It's just like,
I need to hear it. Thank you so much, Karamo. That means so much to me because not many people experience what we have the blessing and luxury of experiencing, this living our dreams, becoming the image of our imaginations. And as much of a blessing as it is, and as incredible as our lives are, getting to connect with people that we admire and have these life-changing moments in our lives, we're still human and it's not easy. And I've learned so much that is going to help protect me going into this next experience. And I guess it's so helpful hearing someone who has finally having the luxury of being able to reach out to somebody who has blazed a trail, who is a reflection of me, who has gone before me, where I dare to follow. It's such a blessing and such a gift being able to have your.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I get the same gift from you. So it's great. We're here together and it's one of those things where, it's so funny because I have siblings who are very successful and I remember them talking about their dreams when they're younger and no one judges their dreams. This is the only field where people feel comfortable in judging your dreams. And I wish people could just think about that. Like, if I said I wanted to be a doctor, you wouldn't, once I put on that white coat, you wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, they did this or did that. You gave them a certain level of appreciation and respect because they accomplished their dreams. And yet we don't sort of get that because it's in the public eye. And so I just want to pass that message, not for you, but for other people to be like, don't judge other people's dreams because they had to work very hard to get there.
Ooh, damn. That is as Oprah would say, an aha moment, a tweet. That is good. What is your spiritual practice?
Touching and connecting, intimacy through touch. I'm not a big meditator. I try, but touching is something big for me because I feel connected to the world. That's why I give a lot of hugs, deep hugs. Communication is big for me. That's a big spiritual practice of like, my partner always tell you, like, I will say something over and over again until I figure it out. It can sound like Tourette's, but I'm like, I can't keep it up here. It has to come out. And the more I say it over and over again, I'll get clarity. And once the clarity comes, the anxiety goes and I can move on. And that's the same thing that happens with a spiritual practice. When you pray, it's basically me giving my prayers or my thoughts out and not just in my head.
Oh, I love that. My boyfriend used an analogy a few months ago with me saying that anxiety is just contained vibration. You
It is. And you got to let it loose. You have to let it loose.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
Is that I'm really sweet, because I'm not. And I don't like that, especially because of Queer Eye, people and all of my castmates, whether they'll admit this publicly or not, but it's hard when people like try to pigeonhole you in that you're always positive. You know, my castmate, my co-host, Tan France, he's the fashion guy on Queer Eye. He got on my podcast and he was like, you know, Karamo, we're the Queer Eye guys, and everybody expects us to be happy all the time. And it's the truth. People always expect me to be happy and always be nice and always be sweet and always be kind and always want to hear every issue they're going through. And when I set a boundary, they're like, well, who's this? You know, whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm a human being. And so I say I'm not nice to make sure people understand that I am a human with emotions that are, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm sexual, sometimes I'm, you know, really happy, and sometimes I really want to inspire people to live better lives. But this is not the space I live in. I don't live in this 24/7 of like hearing people's problems and, you know, lifting them up. I'm multifaceted. And it's okay because every human being has all these sides, but yet we sometimes try to pigeonhole people into one side, and it's like, don't pigeonhole me. And so I disarm people by saying, I mean.
When or where do you feel most authentically yourself?
In the arms of my fiance. He is the person I trust the most with every piece of information. I'm bald, so I shave my head. But like when a couple of days, like quarantine, it grows back in and you can be like, oh, you really are bald. It's not the cute look when you shave it all off. And so it's nice just to be someone you could just be authentic with yourself around and just be, you know, whatever. I feel that way around my kids too, but it's, you know, different because I'm still the parent. But I would say I feel comfortable around him. And I've been really blessed to have a group of, you know, best friends that I've had for years and a really close relationship with my family. So anytime around them, I feel the most authentic and great. I never feel the most authentic in television or being on camera, because that is anybody who's in this business and who is in this, it never feels fully safe, because everybody out there, you one step away from cancel culture, which I wish we would cancel culture. And so you always have to be on edge. And so once I walk away from this is when I feel most authentic and safe.
I feel the same way. And the people who I know who feel truly authentic and comfortable to be vulnerable on camera are some of the craziest motherfuckers I know. So
thank you.
Girl, do you have a favorite quote?
Be afraid of standing still, not of growing slowly.
Love that. And lastly, what do you celebrate or love most about yourself?
Ooh, physically or emotionally?
All of the above.
Because physically, I'm in love with my eyebrows. Oh my gosh, I can look at my eyebrows for hours. I just love them. They're very expressive. I have people at home you can't see, but Jeffrey and I can see. And so I love my eyebrows.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. And then I love that I am super organized mentally. I'm able to see a problem in front of me. And have you ever seen the show Avatar? I'm watching it. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I love it. So I feel sometimes like I am a earthbender, because like I can just literally see a big rock in front of me and be like, nope, let me move this, let me move this, let me move this, and let me move this. And it's one of the reasons that I feel like I'm really successful in life, is because I don't get boggled down by like a big problem or a big project in front of me, because I'm able to dissect it and take it and do it in pieces. And I think that's a skill that I have, and that I love that about myself.
You are an alchemist, my friend. You have the ability to turn lead into gold.
Amen. I'll take it. You know, I read The Alchemist. I read the Celestine Prophecy a long time ago, and I love that book. And then someone said, you got to read The Alchemist. And I got 2 chapters into Alchemist and never read it. And so now you just said that. Now I feel like I want to go back and read it.
It's one of my all-time favorite novels. Paulo Coelho is such a brilliant, brilliant author. It's a gift that I Oprah it. I order dozens of them at a time and just hand them out to everybody that I know.
I have it still upstairs, not even bullshitting. Like I have it. Have you ever read Celestine Prophecy?
Yeah. Reading it makes me want to visit Peru and Machu Picchu so badly.
Boom. Same.
It's incredible. It really put things in perspective for me that everything is energy and everything is connected. And it's told in such a beautiful, fictional narration. It's stunning.
Can we take a couples trip and all go to Machu Picchu together?
Done. I love that.
And it's not now.
You're so funny. Yeah, you should also read The Prophet.
Okay.
The Alchemist. All right, everyone. We are out of time. Thank you to my incredible guest, Karamo Brown, for having this conversation with me.
I love you. Thank you for talking with me.
If I can leave you with one thing, it's this. I love you, and I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks, boo. I love you too. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad that we can make this happen.
And if I can leave you all with one thing, it's this. Celebrate yourself and love each other. I'm JBC, and I love you.
Remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you tune into our frequency. You can support us by sharing this episode with a friend and spreading the love with each other. You can find us at conversationswithothers.com and reach us at Conversations with Others on Instagram, at CWO Podcast on Twitter, and Conversations with Others Podcast at gmail.com. Our outro song is Looking for Another by Brittany Allen.